hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
What's up, my friend?
I can just see the joy and enthusiasm seeping out of your skin. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another week of Case Files with Kat.
And Ashley.
I sounded like I was just going through puberty right there. My voice went like...
That's okay. I sounded enthusiastic when I said my name.
It's just going to be that kind of show. You drinking anything today?
No, I'm still drinking water until my stuff next week.
You want to give an update on that?
It is. I just have my next thing on September 8th. So
Okay.
that should be the last thing that I have, hopefully.
Send all your good juju to Ashley so
Yes,
she doesn't
thank
have
you.
to have any more dental procedures because they suck.
Yes. That would be
so-
fantastic.
So I am drinking, but I'm not drinking a beer. So we can skip right through that.
Okay, then. All right. Oh, what is that?
It is a very tall, very tall vodka tonic
Well, that sounds amazing right now.
with some lemon.
Oh, okay then.
I'm trying to cut a few carbs here and there where
I
I can.
see. Okay.
So I'm just having a skinny bitch, you know.
Okay. Got it. Just gonna drink vodka instead all the time.
It's gonna make for like really fun episodes, right?
Mhm,
Right?
mhm,
I don't
mhm.
know. They're legendary.
So I've heard.
So shout out to more of my daughter's teachers who are fans of the show. Thanks for listening. What?
Ooh.
Little embarrassed, a little worried at the same time.
It'll be all right. Everyone else at the professional networking things know about us.
That's true, but they don't teach my kids. All right,
yes.
so
Wow.
like kind of interested to know more. All right, but so let's start with the question of the week. You want to start there?
All right.
Because I'm not doing trivia this week. So what was the most famous urban legend in the city or state or country where you lived? Like, what's the one that you heard about when you were a kid?
So there are a ton for North Carolina because North Carolina just has haunted places and all kinds of stuff. But
neat.
One of the biggest ones is Gravity Hill. And the legend is like if you drive up to Gravity Hill at night, there's some crazy shit that'll happen. It's on Richfield Road. There was a mother was driving and she had like her young child with her in the car and they stalled out on the road and like as she got out of the car to like push the hill up herself, she got hit by a truck and she died. And so now her and the child died. And so now it says if you go to the hill at night and you put baby powder on your car and you put your car in neutral at the bottom of the hill, you will be pushed up the hill and you'll be able to see the handprints on your car in the baby powder. Now, I don't know about people's cars being pushed up, but I have heard many people say they've gone out there with the baby powder and seen handprints in it and taken pictures and stuff of hand sizes that are not their size of hand. So unless they stole someone's baby, of course, to take with them. But yeah, that's one of the bigger ones. There's a lot involving like railroad tracks where someone's been hit by a train and you can still see them walking up and down the railroad tracks.
Let me tell mine.
Yeah.
Let me tell mine before you keep going on.
No, I was just saying like there's a ton in North Carolina, like that kind of stuff.
Well, my very first real memory of an urban legend was when I was on a trip in San Antonio, and it was about the time when John Lennon died. So I was about 4. And I remember my cousins being so upset and crying. They were listening to the Beatles in the car. And that night they wanted to go to the ghost tracks. And the story goes that a bus full of kids stalled out on the tracks and were hit by the tracks. And the legend is, if you go drive to the tracks, the children will push your car over.
Is that not
tracks.
crazy? Guys, we did not plan that.
That's why I was like, okay, shut up. Let me tell my story.
Yeah, no, we did not plan that. Children are scary, especially dead ones.
Well,
especially dead ones that push your car around.
The dead, right. So the obvious explanation was obvious. I mean, like gravity, right? But it was always spooky. And I found a news report in 2018 that Union Pacific was going to like completely redo that particular intersection, the Ghost Tracks intersection. And basically they would change the layout of that area, adding in the crossing signs and all of that, and basically taking away that gravitational pull. Mm-hmm. And so they were interviewing residents as they were coming up to it. And they're like, what? They can't do that. I don't want them to do that, because they really believed that the children were the ones pushing you over the track. But really it was because you're kind of slanted and you're going down, So it's, go ahead.
There's no gravity pulling you upwards at Gravity Hill. So I don't know how to explain, because there's been so many people who've said it. I've never tried it because I don't want to invite that kind of stuff into my life.
They'll follow you home, just pushing your car everywhere. But I mean, the reality of that is people were putting themselves in danger stopping their car on a train track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's funny. I was like, train tracks in San Antonio, and it was like ghost tracks. I'm like, that's it. That was it. Found the story, did it. So, okay. So tonight we are going on a bit of a journey.
Oh,
we are going to be talking about an urban legend, which is why I asked the question. But there's also relevant truth that goes with it, which kind of is scary because urban legends aren't supposed to be real.
Yeah.
So, okay. So tonight I am discussing the urban legend of Cropsey.
Okay.
Do you know of Cropsey?
I do not. I feel like I'm about to learn a whole lot, though.
You're about to know a whole lot. It's actually not that it's not that involved. So, but when we get to the real life part of it is when it gets a little bit involved. So, what strikes me about this one in particular is that, well, it turned out to be sort of true, and the setting of the horror was quite literally like a movie. So, let me explain. We all know the stories we told as kids, right? Babysitter alone in the house, and the phone rings, the couple at the makeout spot, and the dripping of the blood on the hood of the car. Do you know that story?
Mm-hmm. Not about blood dripping on the hood of the car, no.
And they get out, and there's like the boyfriend's up in the tree, and there's a hook on the car door, and it's all about the hook, right? It's all about the hook. And then what about the one about the dog who used to sleep under the girl's bed, and whenever she felt scared,
I do know that one. The
dog was licking, except that one time it wasn't her dog.
Okay, I do know that one, because that one used to freak me out because of my dog.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, a lot of us know those stories. It was something that, as like preteens, we probably told each other. It was always some escaped convict or a mental patient, right? And stories that were made to scare the ever-living crap out of children. And it was always kind of those same things.
Yeah.
Well, Cropsey is no different. Cropsey, it was a very local to Staten Island. He existed only on Staten Island, and even had an old insane asylum as his home and everything.
Oh, wow.
So, like, there's an actual location, an actual woods, and then like an actual thing, right? So it was like, mwah, a perfect backdrop. No, right? Just perfect. So this is from thelineup.com. Parents used Cropsey to frighten their children into being good and staying near home. After all, Cropsey could be anywhere, waiting to strike. Older siblings would tell Cropsey stories at night to terrify their younger brothers and sisters. As if that wasn't enough, one summer camp variation on the tale of Cropsey inspired a 1981 slasher movie, The Burning, which was by Harvey Weinstein, I think. The cult classic is surprisingly faithful to this tale, the tale that Staten Island scouts once swapped over toasted marshmallows. It features a once respectable man named George Cropsey who goes insane after a prank gone wrong leaves him disfigured and begins killing unsuspecting summer campers with an axe. So that's basically the urban legend of Cropsey, always wielding an axe or a hook, right? So I first learned about Cropsey quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when Jason wanted to watch this documentary. It was called Cropsey. It came out in 2009, but we hadn't probably watched it till 2010 or 2011. It was written and directed by Joshua Zeman and Barbara Brancaccio, and the filmmakers are both from Staten Island, which is just outside of New York City. It's a borough, and had both grown up hearing all of these tales about Cropsey. They both had them. One of them had him with an axe, and the other one had him with a hook. They were all about stealing and picking up the children and killing the children. So when they finally came together, they realized that this was a topic that they were both really interested in and decided to make a movie. They sound like us. Like, oh, you like true crime? I like true crime. Anyway, fun fact, Joshua Zeman is also the director of a documentary series that I did another story on called Sons of Sam. Maybe you heard of it?
Yeah.
That'll tie in a little bit later.
Okay.
A little bit later, very end. Okay. So I started this episode with the question of what the urban legend in your area was, because Cropsey was Staten Island's urban legend. And it sounds like we both had urban legends that were about train tracks or intersections and creepy kids that push your car. So he was this escaped mental patient who lived in the tunnels beneath the old mental institution, who would come out late at night and snatch children off the streets. He had a hook for a hand, sometimes a bloody axe, but the stories were known all over Staten Island. And so the documentary starts with people talking about, oh, Cropsey, yeah, he's this kind of guy and that kind of guy. And like everybody had heard, all these people on the street knew exactly who Cropsey was. So, but the thing was, there was an old mental institution on Staten Island. It's actually one of the most famous old rundown mental institutions in the country because we may not know it by name, but we have all heard of the story that really catapulted Geraldo Rivera to fame, the infamous Willowbrook State School. And I don't know if you remember how this was in the 70s. So Willowbrook State School was a state-supported institution for children with intellectual disabilities. They used the R word back then. Located in the Willowbrook neighborhood on Staten Island in New York from 1947 until 1987. The school, I'm kind of doing quotes on that because it wasn't really a school, but it was designed for 4,000, but by 1965, it had a population of 6,000. And at the time, it was the biggest state-run institution for people with mental disabilities in the U.S., and conditions were terrible, and questionable medical practices and experiments prompted then Senator Robert F. Kennedy to call it a snake pit. So, because he had gone to visit it and was like, nope. The institution gained national infamy in 1972 when Geraldo and his crew were invited in, unbeknownst to the administrators, Avi, by Dr. Michael Wilkins. He was fired right after that, this doctor, but he was basically trying to get family members to unionize in a way, to come together to protest the conditions that their family members were living in. And I mean, he was there, so he was trying to get them to like rise up, you know?
Yeah.
But so he went in, did an expose called "The Last Disgrace" and on the conditions there. But he went in unannounced and saw its just deplorable, awful, criminal conditions. So here's a quote. There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children, lying on the floor naked and smeared with her own feces. They were making a pitiful sound, a kind of mournful wail that it's impossible for me to forget. This is what it looked like. This is what it sounded like. But how can I tell you what it smelled like? It smelled of filth. It smelled of disease. And it smelled of death. But
awful.
I can't even begin to, I'm like, you can see the footage of that. It's terrible. The news crew was then asked back by the administration to do a proper tour, and it was like 180-degree difference. And of course, the Geraldo and his team were like, yeah, BS. So they went back again, like the children were all clothed. The attendants were hugging on them. All the kiddos seemed happy and clean and dressed. But they went back again unannounced, and it was just like it was the first day. Like nothing had changed.
So awful.
Yeah, especially having worked where I used to work. It breaks your heart. The link to the video, you can find it like on Geraldo.com, but there's a YouTube video of it in our show notes. But let me warn those of you with sensitive stomachs or, hearts, that it's a tough thing to watch. It really is. It was a long time ago, and things are different now, thank goodness. But yeah, it is a really, really tough thing to watch, how it used to be. So former resident Bernard Carabello described getting beaten with sticks and belt buckles.
Oh my God.
He recalled being kicked into a wall by staff members, and he went on to say sexual abuse was rampant at the hands of staff and other residents. Some of them had like Down syndrome or were just blind or were, there was a savant that lived there. Residents were rarely taught much of anything, despite Willowbrook's claims of being a school. There was no behavioral modification exercises. There was no social skills or hygiene or grooming skills of any kind. Nothing was taught. Nothing like that was taught to any of them. And in the video, you're watching the attendants take like heaping spoonfuls of food and just shoving it into these poor kiddos' mouths. And like there's nothing that they can do. They're just like, and it's just so inhumane. So, So on the rare occasion that showers were given, they'd be given in groups, and residents would only be given 5 minutes to clean themselves with no soap, no toothpaste, no individual towels. So I'm not really sure how they called that showers. Many residents needed help eating, but the lack of staff led to cut in meal times, which should have been 30 minutes of relaxing while enjoying a meal turned into a 3-minute ingestion of gruel. There was no comfort, there was no structure, there was no hope for any of these residents at Willowbrook. So finally, so that was in 1972. Finally, in 1987, public outcry finally revved up enough to lead to its closure. And so in 1987, there was also some federal civil rights legislation protecting people from disabilities. So all of this kind of finally came out. So I think that's just fantastic. A February 2020 New York Times investigation found that the alumni of Willowbrook continued to be abused in smaller group homes. So it never ends, I guess, for these folks. That maybe they were it's awful. So a portion of the grounds and some of the buildings were incorporated into the campus of the College of Staten Island, which moved to Willowbrook in the early 1990s. So just this alone, my goodness.
Yeah.
I could have done the whole show because on just this place, because there were hepatitis studies that were being done because with
cities,
hepatitis studies.
Oh, studies. Like kind of cities, like I don't know. I was thinking of like tent cities and stuff.
Well, it was basically like that there with 6,000 people because 90% of the residents ended up having hepatitis within the first 6 weeks of being there, 90 days of being there. And so they were like, okay, well, we're going to give people hepatitis since they're going to get it anyway and do studies on, because they were just learning about what hepatitis was. They weren't sure how you got it. They didn't know, so they were looking at the differences of the hepatitises, and so they were like, these are perfect candidates to do experiments on.
Wow.
I mean, there's so much. There's so much I could talk about Willowbrook, and I mean, it's a horror of a place, right? And
yeah.
So Willowbrook. So oh my goodness, what Willowbrook alone was fodder for urban legend building. I mean, oh my goodness, so that was like such a big deal. Oh, the mental asylum.
There'd be a lot of paranormal activity.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Parents used to use the tale to spook their little ones at night. Go to bed or Cropsey will get you.
Oh,
but I know. But as the doc points out, Cropsey turned frighteningly real in the 1970s and 80s when children actually began disappearing. So bum, bum, bum. If you had Kevin, this would be a good episode. So it wasn't until 1987 when 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger, born with Down syndrome, was reported missing on July 9th, 1987. And witnesses had spotted Jennifer walking with a homeless-looking man that the police kind of knew right away who it was, a gentleman by the name of Andre Rand. The community came together to help her families search for her. And again, this is in 1987. Kids started disappearing in the 70s. The community came together to help her family search for her, combing the woods by the old abandoned Willowbrook State School, and her body was found underground after a 35-day search. A particular spot caught the eye of a retired New York firefighter, George Kramer, and he returned with the police, and the entire body was unearthed. I'm not going to correct myself. From the shallow grave, and the remains were positively identified as those of Schweiger. I would feel so bad if I were her mom to send her she went with somebody, I think, to the store to buy the soap. Police searched the grounds for evidence and found one of Rand's. See, this is again why I don't understand how any of us survived the 70s. Sending a 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome by herself to the store because you need soap. I don't know. By herself in New York City. I don't know. Not New York City, but Staten Island. But still, I don't know. All right. She might have been very...
Maybe trying to let her feel like she had some...
Yeah, maybe high functioning, but still, I
feel like it's dangerous to send your kids out alone, but I don't know.
That's how I feel too. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to be a bad 12-year-old parent. I'm not going to want them to go anywhere. It's true. And I know that there are some folks with disabilities who that would not be a big deal, but there was no stranger danger at that time.
Yeah.
Because they were just
disability or not, I feel like that's still
Yeah, you're right. I'll shut up now. Okay, so Okay. All right. So a particular spot caught the eye of George Kramer, and they found the body of Jennifer in the shallow grave. Police searched the grounds for evidence and found one of Andre Rand's makeshift campsites in proximity to Schweiger's grave. And so they knew that they had him then. Like, that was like, okay, we got you. The one part of the documentary that stuck with me back then when I saw it, and when I rewatched it again, like, I was like, yeah, that's so crazy. Is when the police finally had a chance to interview Andre Rand. They took him to a hotel room, and like they were suspicious of him, certainly, but they didn't have any evidence. But they were certainly suspicious of him. And so they talked to him about the Geraldo Rivera piece on Willowbrook, and he hadn't seen it. So they asked him if he wanted to see it, and he said yes, he would love to. So they put on the tape, hoping that maybe something would trigger him. Maybe something would make him open up that heart of his and to fess up and just confess. But what happened was like really bizarre. He went into this sort of catatonic state, almost rocking, right? Like bug-eyed and drooling. And that's the picture. I sent it to you. That's the picture you have of him at his arrest. They took him from the hotel to the police station, and he didn't speak for weeks. He looked like a madman. He looked like, he was a homeless guy, and he looked like the person that would have done all of these things. Yeah. That to Jennifer and all of that. The drool's hanging from his mouth. His eyes were wide open. He's like, you can tell he is not in that moment. He is somewhere else. But once he started to see all of the filth and the sounds and what was being shown, he lost it. He had told the officers that the employees were victims too, not just the residents of Willowbrook. He said that he felt like they weren't being cared for either. So it was sort of save yourself, I guess, in that situation. But he also said he felt like the residents of Willowbrook, all of those kiddos and everything, that they shouldn't be alive. And like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, people who have disabilities shouldn't be allowed to live. And they didn't really understand that so little was known about him then. They didn't really understand, where that was coming from or anything like that. So that was sort of what was revealed in the documentary later. So let's talk a little bit more about Mr. Andre Rand, the Cropsey legend come to life. So he was actually born Frank Russian. Don't know where the name Andre Rand came from. Nobody has any idea where that name came from, but that's the name he gave himself. According to his younger sister, who was in the documentary, neither she nor Rand were sexually or physically abused as children. So that doesn't check off any boxes for us, right? So to her, she has spent much of her life trying to figure out what went wrong. He only reached out when he needed something, but by 2009, she hadn't heard from him at all. But when he was 14, his father died. So this was March 27th, 1958, and his mother was institutionalized at Pilgrim Psychiatric Center in Brentwood, New York, where they would visit her as teenagers. So this, to me, explains everything. I don't know, like, history of mental health problems. Yeah. Check. Parent died early? Check. Having to go visit your mother in an institution because she has lost her ever-loving mind? Check. I mean, what do we always say? He didn't stand a chance. But that's not exactly fair because his sister turned out okay. So it's like nature versus nurture. It goes into that. Like, did he take on his mom's sort of mental health issues? No idea. So in the mid 1960s, he was not a mental patient. He was not. He was a custodian, an orderly, and physical therapist at the Willowbrook State School. And so that isn't that so sad? So who even knows what kind of horrendous things he did to those kiddos? But he had a bit of an early crime record. He picked up a group of 11 children from the YMCA located on Staten Island in a school bus, purchased a meal for them without the consent of any of their parents, and took them to the Newark Liberty International Airport in the state of New Jersey. None of the children were harmed in this encounter, but Rand was apprehended and served 10 months in jail for unlawful imprisonment. Now, one of the guys that was part of that 11 was actually interviewed in the documentary, and they had no idea what was going on. They were like, he was like, "Hey, you guys want to go to a park?" Okay. And they all hopped in the bus. And they're like, "Wait, where are you taking us?" And then he's like, "Oh, we're going to take you to this place. You guys want food?" "Yeah, sure." And he bought them all food. Then he takes them to the city. They're like, "We're at an airport." And then he was like, "Oh, this is just too much." And then he dropped them. He did.
What was he going to do with them at the airport?
He was probably going to kill them.
At the airport?
But I think he probably just wanted like one of the kids to hop in there. And then they were all like, "Hey, come on, this guy's going to take us to a cool place."
Gotcha.
Okay. And all of a sudden he's like a babysitter.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
For 11 rowdy kids. And so this guy is like, "Yeah, we had no idea. We weren't scared. We didn't worry. We were like, oh, this is cool. It's an adventure." And then he finally dropped them back home and everybody's like freaking out.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really good at his craft just yet. Just yet. But he stuck around town. That's where he stayed. So as he got better, he was more on the radar, I guess, or as he kept going, because he was still around. Homeless guy, still hanging out. So here are the alleged victims. This is who they are saying that starting in the 70s, he actually is responsible for disappearing. In 1972, a 5-year-old Alice Pereira, vanished after her brother had left her alone for a moment. They were playing in a lobby of a building on the island. Reports also suggest Alice may have been sighted in one of the parks. Rand was the prime suspect in this case due to his previous criminal record. Alice was never seen again. In 1981, 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes did not return home after going to the store to get a bar of soap with her friend. Andre Rand pulled up to Holly and her friend and pulled Holly into his Volkswagen and drove off with Holly. Her parents filed a missing persons report and a search was issued. When questioned, several eyewitnesses reported seeing Hughes with Rand. She was last seen with Rand and has not been seen again. In 2004, Rand was convicted of kidnapping Holly Ann Hughes. In 1983, 11-year-old Tahisi Jackson was reported missing after her mother had sent her to purchase food and she did not return. She was last seen exiting the Mariners Harbor Motel in Staten Island on August 14th, 12 days after Rand was released from prison. Rand was questioned, but no charges were brought. In 1984, Staten Island resident Hank Gaffario was reported missing after he did not return home one night. Gaffario was described as being slow and had an IQ in the 70s. At the time of his disappearance, he was 22. And according to the Cropsey documentary, Gaffario was 21 when he was allegedly kidnapped by Rand. Eyewitnesses reported last seeing Gaffario in a local diner with Rand in the early morning hours. His body has never been found. I should go back and to say that all of these victims were disabled in some way.
And I'm sorry, did you say he also drove a VW? Like, do all serial killers drive a VW of some kind? I'm just gonna be like looking at every single VW person driver I've seen from now on, especially the Beatles.
Can I skip to the end?
I'm
gonna talk. My last sentence is about that. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
I'm just looking at the car in the parking lot at my office. Like, how many
VWs that I love?
Which exit should I leave from?
Luckily, it's still light out. Yeah, I love VW, but like every time, I'm like, damn it, damn it. So after finding Jennifer, investigators. So this is then finally the last victim was Jennifer Schweiger, but after finding Jennifer, investigators decided to take a closer look at the other missing children cases and found a bit more evidence against him. Witnesses were able to place Rand's green Volkswagen near the deli where 7-year-old Holly Hughes was seen purchasing a bar of soap right before she disappeared. And they actually bring this up in the documentary because they have a picture of like the intersection and the Volkswagen is in the picture, like he had come back to the scene of the crime. His Volkswagen was in that picture. Crazy shit. So Rand had already been questioned and his car was searched simply because of his record and the fact that his aunt lived in the same apartment building as Holly, but nothing came of the questioning, so he was let go. But in 1988, Andre Rand was charged with the kidnapping and first-degree murder of Jennifer Schweiger. The Staten Island jury could not reach a verdict on the murder charge, but convicted Rand of the first-degree kidnapping charge. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, and he would have been eligible for parole in 2008 if not convicted of a second kidnapping. In 2004, all of this resurfaced and Rand was put back on trial, this time for Holly, and he was found guilty of kidnapping again and sentenced to another 25 years. So, keep bringing up those cases. Yeah. So in 2004, Rand was again brought to trial, this time with Holly Ann Hughes 20 years earlier. There's no statute of limitations in New York for first-degree kidnapping, which made this charge possible. Thank goodness. A jury did convict him. He will become eligible for parole in 2037. He will be 93 years old. So he will probably die before then. So did he act alone? Here's where the Cropsey and the Sons of Sam come together.
Oh, okay. I'm excited.
Little conspiracy theory in here as well. So there's a little bit of overlay. So according to the Cropsey documentary, some people along with detectives speculated that Rand may have had help, and many believed he was passing the children around to his homeless friends and the underground network of homeless and mentally disabled people living in the tunnel systems of the former Willowbrook State School. It is entirely possible, though, that this kidnapper and pedophile simply decided to start murdering his victims and acted alone. It's totally possible. Or maybe somebody else was involved. There was quite a bit of speculation, as is expected with cases like this. But there was also mention of a possible connection to a satanic cult. There were signs of satanic rituals being held out in those woods, in the abandoned buildings of Willowbrook, and in the crumbling remains of the nearby Seaview Hospital. Some briefly theorized that Rand may have been procuring the children for this cult. There has even been mention of the Process Church in connection to these children's murders, which, if you remember, you probably don't, but the Process Church is the same organization that has been accused of having unholy alliances with Charles Manson and David Berkowitz. That was like the original church of the satanic cult that he is supposedly. I know, it's like there was more than one. Like this guy makes me think, was there more than one?
Yeah.
The group claims Manson was never a registered member, and they are no longer operational at the time. They were no longer operational at the time of the Son of Sam murders. So they don't claim these two evil people. So it's not like ISIS claiming we did that. You know, they would be proud, right? But of course, there were also people who thought he didn't do it at all. Truly, they really don't. They have they have a healthy amount of suspicion and the authority, and so they're just I don't know. There was a couple that was interviewed, and they said this is what they were like. Man, they searched and they searched and they searched this area, and it wasn't until they really pinpointed this Andre Rand guy that they went back and found it just right by his encampment. It was it was a pretty shallow grave. You would have seen it if you had been searching and searching and searching. And all of a sudden there's a foot hanging out,
yeah.
Right? And so it just didn't make sense. They felt like maybe the way that she was buried and what is it called where the blood doesn't match the way that you were laying, like a body had been moved. Oh man,
I have no idea. I didn't know there was a term for that.
Your blood settles.
Yeah.
Right. That if you're dead and you die on your back and then you're found on your stomach, it's not, the clotting isn't going to match. They're going to be able to tell.
I did not know that. That's a new thing I've learned today.
That's like some CSI forensic files kind of stuff. So if you move a body, make sure it's in the exact same position.
Okay, got it.
She's writing, everybody.
I also learned today, just real quick side note for anyone who's listening to cats about body movement and placement. I learned if you eat part of a peach pit, it actually, when you digest it, it turns into cyanide. So, that's just a little thing if you want to crumble up peach pit and just drink. You didn't hear it from me. I'm just kidding. But no, that is a true fact. That I learned that today because I almost died from a peach pit. I looked it up. Apparently, peach pits are very dangerous to digest because it does, your body turns into some kind of cyanide inside your body. Fun fact. The things you learn here on Case Files.
Did you almost die? Did you eat?
Well, I was eating a peach and I didn't take the pit out. I didn't know you were supposed to take the pit out before you eat the peach. And then
but you don't go.
And then for whatever reason, I started looking up about the peach pit itself. And that's when I discovered they're very dangerous. And you should always remove the pit before you eat a peach because of what I just said, where it turns into cyanide in your body.
But does it turn into cyanide? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It does. So remember, people, peaches and placement.
Peach pits, placement, poison.
The 3 Ps. You did not learn them here on our podcast.
Okay. All right. I really don't know where I am.
You were talking about her. They thought that her foot was sticking out, and
yeah. They just felt like it was suspicious. It was suspicious that after they kind of had their guy, that they went back and right by his encampment, they hadn't been looking there, like the police hadn't already been scouring his encampment.
Yeah.
And then it kind of seemed like we were just walking, we passed it and go, oh, this little spot looks really suspicious.
Yeah.
And then they found it. So Anyway, but to counter that, there was also an interview with a local preacher, local man of God, who actually had given him shelter in his home, trying to get him to come forward to the police, right?
Mhm.
And he said, "Do you think he did it?" And he said, "Yes." "Well, why do you think he did it?" "Because he told me. He told me he did it. He told me they didn't deserve to live." And I was like, "Oh, well, he did it, I guess." I mean, he wasn't talking about satanic cults,
Mhm.
but cults. I said cults, like Colt 45s. I'm drinking vodka. So, and heartbreakingly enough, the whereabouts of his other victims, Alice, Tahisi, Hank, they're all still unknown. Actually, also Holly. Naturally, he is a prime suspect for all of these, but he refuses to tell anyone where their bodies are and still protests his innocence to any law enforcement official or reporter in earshot. And the documentarians had actually written to him before they started production on the documentary. They didn't hear. They waited a month and they didn't hear. And when they did during the filming, they did hear back from him. He said that they could come visit. They got to the prison, and when they got there, he changed his mind. He didn't want to see them. But he was a pretty smart individual. He took the evidence, all the evidence, all the files, and he would write notes like in between, and very clean handwriting, beautiful actually, really nice handwriting. And he wrote in the margins anywhere he could, like, "This is not true, this was not said by me," like things like that. And like, I mean, so he's still all about trying to say that. But he seems to have no problems chatting with his fellow inmates about his disgusting habits. He was quoted in a conversation stating, "Me and Ted Bundy are alike in many ways. We both used Volkswagens. Bundy's thing was women. My thing is kids. Do you think the police could figure that out?"
Oh.
So there you have it. Sons of Sam, Ted Bundy, urban legends, conspiracy theories, all in this one story. And that is Cropsey, the real and the made up.
All right. Well, that was exciting. Lots of twists and turns. Like I said, now I am 1,000% watching every Volkswagen driver out there.
That's funny.
I mean, is it? Because that's like the third or fourth story we've done now where the killer was driving a Volkswagen. So I'm just
That's
saying.
true. There are a lot. True. Okay.
I'm going to read the answers to the question of the week because
Yay!
I'm stressed out now. Okay. So for anyone that forgot, the question of the week: what is the most famous urban legend in your city, state, country? Laura says, "Okay, I'm dating myself, but the man who killed Halloween happened in the Houston area when I was 10. Ronald Clark O'Brien was convicted for killing his son with cyanide-laced pixie sticks. That year, terrified parents turned their kids' candy in, fearing it was also laced, thus starting the joy of your parents going through your candy." And then Laura said, "So when I read your question of the week to my kiddo, 17-year-old true crime enthusiast, she said, 'Oh, the Candyman murder happened in Houston too.'" I'm not going to read the whole thing because we did an episode on it. That was actually our first episode ever, was Dean Coral. But that was the two answers from Laura. Linda says, "I came of age in Yukon, Oklahoma, and there was a farm where they found disemboweled cows. The entire area became known as Devil Worshipper Road." Whoa. Sarah, saying Candyman in the mirror 3 times. He'll come kill you, and driving with no headlights at night. If you flash yours to let them know, they'd turn around and chase you down. I don't think that's an urban legend. That was a gang initiation, so you know, for a long time.
What?
That was like a thing where like one of their things was like if you flashed your lights at them, like if they had no headlights on and you flashed your lights at them, they would turn around. I don't know if they got that from the urban legend, but
is that an urban legend or is that
no,
real?
That was like a real thing.
What?
John says, I don't know how to say it. Marfa likes.
Marfa.
Ghost kids that push your stolen car off the railroad tracks in San Antonio, and the black dogs. The black dogs in the West Texas desert.
What is that?
I don't know, but Melissa says, I've been to the tracks in San Antonio when I was in college. Well, did they push your car or not, Melissa? I don't know what the black dogs in West Texas are, but the black dog in San Leon is, the urban legend in San Leon is when the mayor a long time ago, he would get drunk and wreck his vehicle a lot, and other people, obviously, in San Leon would get drunk and wreck their vehicles, and their excuse was they were always avoiding a black dog that ran into the road. They didn't see it because it was night and it was a black dog. So that is the black dogs of San Leon. I don't know what it is. Stephanie says Lo Lamita. I don't know what that is. You know what the Lamita is?
No. Oh my gosh, no. I'm going to have to do a story on that now. These are interesting.
Gina says, oh my gosh, she has, I can't even pronounce English words. Yes, she haunts
Llorona.
Okay, she haunts lots of places in Texas and the American Southwest or wherever my relatives happen to live. Also, my grandma used to scare the hell out of us with stories of
La Lechuza. Mm-hmm.
There's an owl icon. Why is there an owl? Is that an owl? What is it?
I think that's
an owl. I want to know. We just need to do a whole bunch of episodes of urban legends.
I know. I think this would be really fun to do a whole thing.
Carrie says, I have a vague memory of something called Blood Road in or around Seabrook. Excuse me, what? And of course, there was the face on the UTMB building in Galveston. I have heard of that one.
I have seen it, girl.
Yeah,
I have seen it.
Definitely Candyman. I still won't do it. And then Bloody Mary.
Obes said that. That's funny.
Bloody Mary. And then it says someone's typing. So someone is
typing a message. But
you better get it in before we end this episode.
The Saratoga Lights.
The what?
Oh, man, you guys. The Saratoga Lights. Yeah. Amanda said that. I don't know. We're going to have to do an episode to explain all of these now. That'll be my next episode.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, man, these are good. I don't know what any of these are, really.
I know. I'm going to have to Blood Road and in and around Seabrook. Oh, got to find that out.
I don't want to know about that because that's where I'm currently in that vicinity staying. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Remember when you had that issue with your tub? You're living on Blood Road.
Well, now the issue is someone keeps letting air out of tires. We had someone... it was, I think, Saturday night or Friday night. Saturday. The people knocked on the door and they said they were in Kemah for like a date night or something. And they came back and the air was completely let out of their tires. Both tires. And they had a little kid at home. Thankfully, there's a machine that blows up tires that I own. And so I blew it up for them. But then my tire, my back tire, which is a brand new tire, was completely flat on Monday morning when I went out. It was like, a brand new tire, and it was not flat over the weekend. So I don't know what kind of urban legend that is, but I wish they would go away. I hope it's not on Blood Road. Maybe I live on Blood Road. I don't know.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. Well, thank you everybody for your answers. Please head back over to the answers, so see if you can add yours. I'd love to hear, especially those of you who live in another country. I want to hear those stories.
Yes, please post, because we'll just do a whole episode of like explaining what all of these urban legends are. It'll be great.
All right, guys. So, Ashley, you want to tell everyone where they can find us?
We are on all of the things. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Will eventually, if I ever get around to it, be on TikTok. We do have a group on Untappd for beer reviews. We are on every streaming platform. Yeah. The best way to get a hold of us, though, is to message us through Facebook. That's the one that's most checked. And pretty instantly, can be seen pretty instantly. But yes. And then next week, my story is going to be a paranormal story. Completely paranormal.
Oh, I can't wait to be scared. Scared.
Yes.
Do we have to do it in the daytime so that you can leave your office without being terrified of your own story?
No, I'm more terrified of VW drivers than I am. My paranormal story does not take place in the state of Texas, so I think I'll be okay.
All right, everybody. Well, we love you. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.